So, like I said, I've been clubbing. I've been clubbing since I was like, oh my God, I'm going to say about 12 or 13.
Wow,
Now,
yes, you beat me though. I started at 14. Yes.
Yeah, so I would say that I learned about house music and our community, the gay community, music clubbing. That was in 1987, and that's when I moved from North Carolina to Washington D.C. because I was born in D.C., raised in North Carolina, and I always wanted to go back to my native where I was born at. And so when I was younger and I left home, I stayed in North Carolina about 2 years. And then I end up just one day, just up and going, just going to D.C., not knowing where I was going to go, what my direction was. I was actually supposed to have been going to stay at a family member's house, but I end up, not doing that, and that's because of my choice. I had met a few gay friends back then. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know about the gay life then. I mean, I knew that I was different, but I didn't know that you could actually live the gay life. So I had met some guys, and I'll never forget it. I can't tell you exactly what day it was. I just know I met these guys, like the hangout where they hang at in D.C. at the time. And they asked me, did I want to go to a club? And I was like, sure. Now, at the time, remember, I'm a teenager. I don't have no ID or none of that. And they said, we'll be able to get you in the club.
Right.
And it was on from there. When I went, they were playing different music. And I know that I liked the music, see, because when I was younger, I used to love music. I used to love dancing. I grew up in the real hip-hop era. The music that they listen to today, yeah, it's okay, but it's nothing compared to our era. And the music was different, and I was more in love with not the words, but the beats. And that's how I learned about, house music and, the gay life. So that was in 1987.
Wow. Amazing. What was house music like back then?
House music was more, to me, first of all, house music was more slower. Everything is, today it seems like everything is on this extra speed play. In our era, it wasn't as fast as it is now. It just seems, for some reason, it just seems like it's just more fast. It's fast.
Right. Right.
So.
A little more complicated.
Yeah, I wouldn't say complicated. That's not the word I would use. It's
just faster.
I don't know. It's just different with time, And
Right.
that's what I would say.
Okay.
I mean, because from what I see, they take a lot of the house music from our era, and they blend it all together now.
Right.
But it's just like I said, it's on, it's on speed dial rollerblades. That's what I would call it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had to sum it up. That's what I would say.
I know that's right. Okay. Well, give us a little history. Give us some of the clubs. Some of the names of these legendary clubs that were out. In all these places that you were traveling to.
Okay. Well, we're going to start with D.C. The first club that I was taken to in D.C. was the Baxter Mill, and which is still a club today. That's still an active club in D.C. today. But it was Baxter's Mill, and of course, my favorite was Tracks in D.C. You had the Delta,
legendary Tracks.
You had the Delta Elite. You had the Clubhouse, which was another one of my favorites. You had oh my god, let me see. It was just so many. but those were for me. Those were the main ones for me: Clubhouse, Tracks, and Bastards Mill. You
Wow.
had the Brad's Rail, you know, but the favorites were Tracks, Clubhouse, and the Delta. And I could remember meeting a lot of the New York kids back then, like for all the main holidays, especially Memorial Day weekend was when you would see a lot of out-of-towners in D.C., and I remember seeing a lot of New Yorkers, and for some reason they attracted me. I mean, because out of all the different states that were coming there, they stood out the most. And it was just something about when I would look in the club and I would see these different individuals, and I could tell they weren't from New York. And the majority of the time, if I would have to point out someone in the club and ask where were they from, it will always be New York. And then another thing that stood out, back then a lot of the individuals had gold teeth. And I thought that was the New York thing at the time, you know, because the majority of the people that were coming down, they had gold tooth in their mouth.
Wow.
So, but they would stand out to me.
Yeah. All right. There's always something about the New Yorker, huh?
Oh, yeah. Now, my club, we're going to talk about my clubs in New York.
All right.
Now, before I moved here, I always heard about Paradise Garage, but I never got to go there. But I always heard about the Tracks here in New York. I always heard about Better Days here in New York. I always heard about Sound Factory. Now, those were just the main ones that I was hearing about. Yes. But, of course, you had the Tunnel. You had Roxy. Now, these were the clubs that were the banging clubs when I moved here to New York, which is 1989. And my favorites were Tracks and Better Days. Those were my favorites.
Yes.
You know. But I went to them all. But those were my favorite right there.
All right. Yes. Tell us a little bit about those two clubs right there, because a lot of people came on the show and talked about, you know, Tracks and Better Days. This is a legendary club. What was it like back in those days?
Okay, the vibe. To me, the vibe was just outstanding. In those clubs, I remember seeing many vocal battles at the club. They were jam packed. Like now, when you go to the clubs, yeah, they are. I mean, all of them are not jam packed here in New York, and the clubs are much smaller here in New York now. Besides in Stage 48 and XL, but what I don't like is because the music, there has been a drastic music change. It's like the younger generation likes to listen to a lot of hip hop,
right?
So they have the tendency to play a lot of hip hop in the clubs. As to our era, the gay clubs, when you went to the gay clubs, right, it was house music, you know, and it was just so much fun. I mean, that was so much fun. Okay, when I moved here, I met a lot of people. I'm going to say I met a lot of people back then. It seems like it was more unity in the clubs back then. Yeah, there were fights here and there, but I mean, it wasn't like it is today. I mean, it's like the fighting is pushing. It pushes individuals away from the club. That's what I feel.
Right, a lot of violence.
But it definitely was, to me, it was like phenomenal. And you worked up a sweat. You was bound to leave the club. When you left the club soaking wet. You were soaking wet with sweat.
Yeah.
And I remember those days of leaving the club and everybody leaving in a posse and there being laughter. the reading sessions back then were kiki reading sessions. I mean, it's just that the aura was so different then. And I really don't see that now. I mean, it's there, but then it's not there.
Right. Wow. Yeah, a lot of the violence and stuff, and it kind of like scared everybody away from the scene for a little bit, because a lot of people getting hurt, people going to jail.
Right.
The urban music and the urban style started becoming of popularity. Right. Wow.
Yeah.
So, who were some of the people that you met at these clubs? Who influenced you in those days?
Okay. Who would I say influenced me? Okay, I'm going to start with before I moved to New York. I remember hanging out in the clubhouse. Let's talk about some of the first kids that I met. Like those kids that I was telling you, that I would know they was from New York before I even got introduced to them. Some of the people that I met back then was Ephraim Dupree. I met Muhammad Omni. I remember Eric was the one who told me a lot about individuals. Eric Christian Bazaar, God bless his soul.
Yes.
But he told me he told me a lot about New York individuals. Some of the other people I had met back then was Hakeem Jordan, and God bless his soul as well. Those were some of the people that came down there, and they used to always say to me that I reminded them of someone. And the name that they mentioned was Stuart LaBeijA. They used to always compare me to Stuart LaBeijA. And at the time when they were saying the name, I didn't know about houses and stuff then. I had no idea about houses or whatever the case may be, or I didn't know about the balls or none of that. But by this time I had seen them in the club, individuals in D.C. in the club voguing, and I was immediately attracted to it. But they used to always say that I reminded them of Stuart LaBeijA, and then they used to always say that they would say that he walked face, and I was like, face? I didn't know what they were talking about. And then they explained to me that they give these balls and blah blah blah, and that that would be my competition in the ballroom scene, because they used to always say that I was very handsome, and I had a nice face, and I could walk face, whatever the case may be. And so those were some of the ones that like they influenced me. Also, you had individuals in D.C. that influenced me. You had Lowell Kahn. You had Benjamin Pendarvis. God bless the dead. You had my friend T. Omni. You had William Milan. Ricky Milan.
Wow.
And these are just some of the kids out of D.C. You had Otis Mugler. I met like all these individuals around the same time. Like when I started that clubbing scene in D.C. And once I was with them when I used to be with them at the club. They're the ones who introduced me to like New York individuals that was in the club. And me hearing so much about these individuals, I also heard a lot about Pepper at the time. And it's for some reason in D.C., she was like one of most people that was talked about in D.C. And this is when